Hey, what's up you guys, it's Connor, and today I'm finally going to be wrapping up the rest of the books that I read last year in 2020. Yes, it's been like 4.5 months, but I still haven't done it, so I need to get that done. It's one of those things where I keep wanting to film certain videos before other videos, so it keeps postponing this video. So I just need to film it and get it up so that I can move on and start talking about the books that I'm reading this year. So I have 15 books that I'm going to be talking about today, books 61 through 75. I only ended up reading 75 books in 2020. It was a rough year for a lot of people, myself included, so let's just get started and talk about the books. The 61st book that I read in 2020, oh my gosh, it's weird to say that 4 months into 2021, is The Lightningstruck Heart by T.J. Klune. If you guys don't know, this is the first book in the Tales of Verania series. Verania? I don't know. It follows a guy named Sam of Wilds. He is the apprentice wizard for this kingdom. At the beginning of the book, you find out that he is called Sam of Wilds because he was tasked to go into the forest and bring back something valuable or something like that, and he brings back his two best friends, a hornless gay unicorn named Gary and a half-giant named Tiggy. At the beginning of the book, the prince of this land is kidnapped, and so Sam has to team up with Knight Ryan Foxheart and has to go save the prince. The only problem with that is that Sam is basically in love with this knight, so it causes all sorts of awkward encounters during their journey. I ended up doing an individual book review for this, which I recently posted, so I will leave that up in the card symbol if you want to check it out, where I go into details about everything that I loved about this book. This book is incredibly campy, and I loved it for that reason. All of the characters make a lot of sexual innuendo jokes and stuff like that, so if you're not into that, you're not going to enjoy this book, but it was the right book at the right time for me, and I ended up freaking loving this book, and I gave it 5 stars. Again, if you want to know more information of my thoughts on this book, check out that review, because I think it's like 10 minutes of me gushing about it. There's a lot of T.J. Klune in this wrap-up. Be forewarned of that as well. Next up is The Extraordinaries by T.J. Klune. This is T.J. Klune's YA debut, which follows a guy named Nick Bell. At the beginning of the book, you find out that he is totally obsessed with the Extraordinaries that are in Nova City, which is where he lives. It's very similar to New York City. The Extraordinaries are basically super-powered individuals, and he writes fan fiction about them. Jet sparking in the background. At the beginning of this book, Nick runs into one of the Extraordinaries, and so his life just starts getting turned upside down. He is dealing with the recent death of his mother. He's dealing with just regular high school stuff like his ex-boyfriend and all of that. He also has his fan fiction writing going on, as well as now he's starting to meet these Extraordinaries, and he has to figure all that out. I also did an individual book review for this, so I will leave that up at the card symbol if you want to check it out. In there, I go into more detail about my thoughts and feelings on it. I ended up enjoying this one. I really liked following Nick, but in my review, I talk about how I think that a lot of the characters and a lot of the scenes that are in this book reminded me a lot of characters and scenes in his other books, and so it wasn't anything particularly new for me, but I still enjoyed the ride. So I'm looking forward to continuing with the series. I hope that he takes this series in a bit of a different direction and explores things like the dynamics between superheroes and the police and the media and everything like that. We'll see. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. Also, if it looks like the camera is crooked, it's not. This chair is broken and it like slants like this. So I need to find a different chair. If you have any recommendations for like reading chairs, let me know, because I'm on the hunt for a good one. After that, I read Akata Witch by Nnedi Okorafor. I actually read this for the House Salt Book Club for a specific month. I don't remember which one, but that's how long it's been since I've done a wrap-up. In this one, you follow a girl named Sunny. She is living in Nigeria, and she came from New York, I believe. At the beginning of the book, she finds out that there are like a magical group of people called leopard people, and so she starts learning about that society and learning magic and all of the dangers that that entails. As I said, I read this for the House Salt Book Club, so I will leave a link up in the card symbol to the live show that we did on this book. I ended up having mixed feelings about this one. I enjoyed Sunny, I enjoyed the setting, I enjoyed learning about the leopard people and how their magic works and how they have all these like magic daggers and stuff, but some things weren't adding up for me, and I wasn't as invested in the story as I could have been or as I wanted to be. I remember being very confused at the ending of that book as well, like the end final big scene. I was not following things as they were happening, and I think I read that end section or listened to the audiobook twice just to see if I could piece everything together. But yeah, I ended up having a mixed experience and giving this book like 3.5 stars. After reading Akata Witch, I was a bit in a book like slump. I wasn't really wanting to read a whole lot, and so to get myself back into gear, I picked up and re-listened to The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. This was my favorite book of 2020. I'm not going to do a like 2020 favorites or anything, but this was it. I really enjoyed it. I also did a book review for this book when I read it the first time, and I'll leave that up in the card symbol if you want to check it out. But this one follows a character named Linus Baker. At the beginning of the book, Linus is working for Dikemi, which is the department in charge of magical youths, and he is assigned to check out this orphanage, the House in the Cerulean Sea, and see if it should be shut down or not. The strange thing about the House in the Cerulean Sea is that it has a very high concentration of very dangerous magical youths at it, so there are additional precautions that need to be accounted for when deciding the fate of this orphanage. As I said, I freaking adore this book. I really enjoyed following Linus and meeting the caretaker of the orphanage, Arthur, and learning about all the different kids. This book is a very character-focused book. It's not very action-heavy. There isn't a whole lot of plot besides Linus just meeting these children and learning about them. So, yeah, I loved it. If you're not into those types of stories, you might not like this one as much, but it was exactly the type of book that I needed when I read it. During the pandemic and everything, we were all feeling very isolated, and this is a very found family heavy story. We actually ended up picking this book for the March 2021 House Salt Book Club pick, so I will leave our live show down in the description where we talk about all the spoilers and all of our feelings for this book. So you can check that out if you want to. The second time around, I still gave it 5 stars. The 65th book that I read in 2020 was Set Fire to the Gods by Sarah Rash and Kristen Simmons. If we're being honest, I could not remember a single thing about this book. All that I, on my own, could remember about this book that we read for the House Salt Book Club for whatever month that was that the main character was a gladiator, or was like a gladiator, and has fire powers, and then the other character that you follow has a different type of magic that people aren't familiar with. That's honestly all I could remember. I went back and watched the House Salt live show for this book, and in that live show I said that the characters were not going to stay with me, and they really did not. If you guys don't know, this follows a character named Ash. At the beginning of the book, she has a reason to have a vendetta against the fire god of this world. So her mission is that she's going to go and kill the fire god and get rid of him because he is the reason why her people are suffering, or she specifically is suffering. Then the other character you follow, which I can't remember his name, but he's on a mission to save his sister, and that's his end game. And you follow the two as they're going along on those journeys. Obviously, there are more things going on other than that. There are some power dynamics and struggles between different gods in this world, and that's basically what's going on. In the live show, I ended up giving this book 3 stars, and I would agree with that. I remember enjoying it fine enough when I read it, but obviously it hasn't really stuck with me very well, so I think that was an apt rating for that one. Again, I will leave that live show link down below if you want to check it out. The 66th book that I read was Akata Warrior by Nadia Korafor. This is the second book in the Akata Witch series, is what I am assuming that it's called. I gave this one 3 stars, but I think that that's a very on me rating because while reading it, I just started to lose interest in the characters and in this world and what was happening with it. In this second book, they actually have to battle the big bad of this series, this duology. We do get that scene, and I appreciated that scene, but I don't think that during the rest of the story there was very much to keep me reading and keep me engaged. So as I said, I started losing interest. If there had been more smaller skirmishes or smaller events that happened throughout the book, I would have stayed engaged. But by the time we got to that final battle and had to fight the big bad, I was just like, okay, whatever. Anything could have happened and I would have been fine with it. There were some interesting things that were happening with Sunny's brother, but it wasn't enough for me. So I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't what I was hoping it would be. After that, I picked up A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. This is the first book in an adult fantasy series, I believe. It follows a girl named Galadriel. At the beginning of the book, you find out that she has some type of magical powers. I can't remember exactly what it was, but she has to go into this school-like setting that is in a parallel pocket dimension. This school is incredibly dangerous and actively tries to kill its students while also teaching them magic and how to protect themselves. There are monsters that live in the school that want to feed on the students, and there are no teachers, there are no adults, it's just students. Every year they get closer and closer to the exit, which is where the most monsters are, and then during graduation is when everyone tries to escape the school that's in the graduating class, and the monsters all try to kill them. I also read this one for a House Salt book club, so I'll leave that link down below. Most of my reading, it seemed, in the latter half of 2020 was for the House Salt book club, or was a TJ Klune book. I ended up enjoying this book. I really liked following Galadriel, who is very apart from her class. She doesn't have very many friends, and the only people that really interact with her are ones that she has established almost business-like relationship with, where she gets something out of it and they get something out of it. There isn't a whole lot of just friendship and doing each other favors in this book. Galadriel's main concern is that she needs to get herself into a team so that they can all work together to escape during graduation. She's not in her final year, but you still have to think about those things ahead of time so that you're prepared for graduation. Galadriel has very dark magic, and so she hasn't really showcased what she can do. So a lot of her classmates don't know exactly how powerful she really is, but she also can't really use her magic because it's dangerous and also is kind of like corrosive. Like if she uses too much of her own magic, she could be hurting herself. I thought all of those things were really interesting. I really enjoyed watching her go through this school setting, try to learn all of the things that she has to learn. I really enjoyed seeing her start to try to form a team and try to get people onto her side, and how certain things work and certain things don't work. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I ended up giving it like 3.75 to 4 stars. I'm leaning in hindsight more on the 4 side range because it's stuck with me. Like, I do remember a lot of the things that happen in this book. And yeah, I'm looking forward to reading the second book whenever that comes out, or if it's out already. I don't know, I haven't been keeping up. Again, we had a spoiler discussion on this book, which I will leave in the description if you want to check it out. I then picked up Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. This follows a bunch of different characters. At the beginning of the book, there is a bank robber who tries to rob a bank for the first time and doesn't do very well. The bank robber ends up running away and goes into an apartment and accidentally takes a bunch of people hostage. So this story follows the bank robber and all of the hostages as they're living through this very intense situation where everyone is mad and cranky and anxious, and you learn about what makes all of these people anxious people, what is causing their anxieties, and then we get to see them start to address those anxieties and start to address the things that are hurdles in their lives. I did an individual book review for this, and I think I ran out of cards, so I'll leave a link to it down in the description if you want to check it out. I enjoyed my reading experience while reading this. There was something about this book in particular that kept me from investing in it fully like I have for a lot of Frederick Bachman's other books. The way that this one is written, it talks to the reader a lot, so you're very cognizant that you are a part from the story, like apart, one word, not 2 words. You're apart from the story and you're reading it from a distance. There's a barrier between you and experiencing the story, which I didn't feel his other books have had. So I ended up enjoying this one, but it wasn't my absolute favorite by him, so I ended up giving it like 3.5 stars, but still a very enjoyable read. If you like the movies that are like Love Actually or Valentine's Day, where there's a bunch of different characters and then you start to see how their lives have connected or have very narrowly brushed past each other, I think you'll really enjoy this. So check it out if you want to. The next book I read was Into This River I Drowned by TJ Klune. 5 years before you start following Benji, his father crashed into the river and drowned, and Benji does not think that it was an accident, but his death was ruled an accident. It says on the back of the book that Roseland is not an ordinary place, and so during the course of this book, you learn more about Benji, his family, this town, and you also meet a mysterious character named Kaliel, who Benji has an immediate attraction to, so they have a bit of a relationship in here. I have not filmed my book review for it yet, but I have all my notes to do so. I just need to get my butt in gear and get that done. I enjoyed this book, but it's definitely not my favorite TJ Klune book that I've read. It reminded me a lot of the movie Michael, which is about like a fallen angel that comes down to Earth and then like experiences living life on Earth, and it starts to change him and stuff like that. It had very similar vibes to this book. I'll leave most of my in-depth thoughts for that review whenever I film that, because I'm trying to get through a lot of books quickly, but I enjoyed this book. I enjoyed the writing. TJ Klune has a very accessible writing style that holds true for every single one of his books that I've talked about in this video so far. Benji is a very depressed individual, so following him was kind of heavy, but I enjoyed the story and I enjoyed learning more about the mysteries of this town. So look forward to that review when I finally film it and put it up. Hi, Nook. Are you okay? I know. I didn't film in the regular orientation because my room is a mess. The next book I picked up was The Secret Diary of Hendrik Groen, 83¼ years old, by... I forgot the author's name. I looked it up at some point, but the author's name is not on the book. In this one, you follow The Secret Diary of Hendrik Groen. He is an 83¼ man who is living in a retirement facility. Their day-to-day lives in this retirement facility, residence, is not very exciting. So Groen decides with a few of the other people in this residence to form the Old But Not Dead Club and to plan to do things that are exciting and new and different and fun to keep their lives interesting while they're being old. I saw this book originally compared to A Man Called Uva, which also features a very cantankerous old man character and how he's doing and living in his old age. So I was really excited to pick up this book and see how I would feel about it. And I would say that I understand why they're compared, because the main characters are old curmudgeons, but I do think that they're significantly different. I really enjoyed seeing Hendrik writing in these different diary entries. I thought it was really well formatted, because if Groen was tired or something like that, he wouldn't write every single day. And I liked seeing all of the antics that the characters in this book get up to. One of the things I really liked about this book is that it takes place in 2013 and is very firmly set in 2013. A lot of the events, like the pop culture events or just historic events that happened in 2013, are referenced in here. For instance, I can't remember exactly which country this is set in, but there is a change in the leadership of their royal family or something like that, and that's documented in here. And I also like that this book didn't shy away that there are pains with getting older and your body just doesn't function like it used to. So there are certain scenes in here where the characters are having, I don't know, incontinence. There are issues where some characters start to forget things, so there's some dementia style stuff in here as well. There's just a whole bunch of different types of old people in this, and I was really enjoying it for that. And I also just really liked seeing this Old But Not Dead Club going about and doing fun things, because they're old, but they're not dead. One thing though I will say is that don't expect this to be like a novel. There isn't anything wrapped up. It is a diary, so it just ends on the last diary entry that you get. There is a sequel though. There is, on the bright side, The New Secret Diary of Hendrik Groen, 85 years old, which I guess spoilers, Hendrik survives the first book. So there is more to his story. I just haven't read this one yet, but this one does end quite abruptly because that's how diary entries are. So like I've been saying, I really enjoyed this one and I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I think. Let me check. Yes, I gave it 4 stars. Next I picked up Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. This is Aidan Thomas's debut novel, I believe, and it follows a character named Yadriel. At the beginning of the book, Yadriel has not been able to go through this certain ceremony that all the boys of his Brewhex community are able to go through and finally manifest their powers. So at the very beginning of the book, Yadriel and his cousin Maritza are doing the ceremony on their own without the immediate approval of their community. Yadriel is trans, and so that has caused some hiccups in him going through his spiritual ceremonies and everything like that. Yadriel assumes that when he goes through this ceremony, which requires him to summon a spirit and help that spirit move on, that he's going to summon the spirit of Miguel, his cousin, who was recently murdered. Instead, he ends up summoning the spirit of a boy named Julian, or Julian. Events unfold from there as they're trying to figure out what actually happened to Miguel, and also find out what happened with Julian. I don't remember. I don't know which one it is. I'm going to go with Julian. Correct me if I'm wrong. I enjoyed the experience of this book overall. It's a YA paranormal romance, so there is a bit of an attraction between Yadriel and Julian as they're going along on their journey, trying to figure out what happened with all these murders. I like the exploration of certain elements of the LGBTQIA+ community, racism, transphobia, deportation, and specifically with the LGBTQIA plus community, acceptance within that community, as well as acceptance by others of members of that community. All of those things I really enjoyed in here. I will say though that this was super predictable. You can predict everything that happens pretty much from the very beginning. There's like one scene that I was shocked by, but it was because Yadriel was doing something really out of character that I didn't think made any sense for him, but you know, what can you do? I also thought that the ending was really, really rushed when compared to the buildup of the story. There's a ton of buildup in this story, and you're building and building and building, and then that final scene and the rest of it is all super quick. I think I would have liked more scenes between Yadriel and Julian to really get behind the relationship, but most of their scenes when they're together are, which I mean is basically the whole book, but is just them focused on trying to solve this mystery instead of, you know, forming that bond that apparently is there. I wish there was just more of those one-on-one, like, downtime emotional scenes so that I could understand why they were so emotionally attached to each other. So in the end, I had a good time while reading this, but it's not like an all-time favorite or anything. I think I gave this book like 3.5 stars because I did really enjoy it, but there were some things that kept me from enjoying it to the utmost that I was hoping to. So 3.5 stars. Belle wants out of the room, so I gotta go let her out. We're down to the last 4 books of this video. The 72nd thing that I read in 2020 was Tesla's Attic by Neil Shusterman and Eric Elfman. This one follows a character named Nick. He's 14 and he recently moves into this rundown house with his father and his little brother. At the beginning of the book, he finds a bunch of junk in the attic of his house, so he decides to have a garage sale. He soon finds out that all of those things were really important. During this book, he's trying to recover as many of those objects as possible to keep them from getting into the hands of someone that would use them to do a bunch of harm to the world. He finds out that the junk in the attic was a bunch of Tesla's inventions, so it's pretty important that he gets all those things back. During the course of the story, you follow Nick and his new friends as they're trying to get back all of these inventions, as well as learning about them and Tesla. I do plan on doing an individual book review for this one because I have done a lot of reviews for Neil Shusterman's books, so look forward to that when it finally goes out. Neil Shusterman is one of my favorite YA novelists, so I'm trying to get through all of his books and see how I feel about each one. I really enjoyed this one. I liked following the main characters. This book is pretty funny, so I was enjoying it for that. It is quite short, so I'm glad that it was very quick-paced and just fun. One of the things that I think that this book does really well is that the stakes just continue to get higher and higher and higher as the plot goes along, so I'm very much looking forward to continuing on and seeing what happens in the rest of the series. I have the next 2 books, so I'll be able to do that at some point soon, but I ended up giving this one 4 stars. At some point I should do a whole Neil Shusterman video where I talk about where I recommend starting with him and everything like that, but I almost feel like I need to read all of the books before I'm able to do that, and he just keeps writing more. Moving on, I gave this one 4 stars. My throat. It's been months since I filmed a video, so I'm a little rusty. Next is another one that I need to film an individual book review for, but that is Gregor and the Prophecy of Bane by Suzanne Collins. This is the second book in the Underland Chronicles, and I did an individual book review for the first book, and I'll leave that link down below if you want to check it out. This series so far has been so good. I gave the first book 5 stars, and I also gave this one 5 stars. I have thoroughly enjoyed this world that Suzanne Collins has created. I really love Gregor. I especially love his little sister, Boots. At the beginning of the first book, Boots falls through a grate in the laundry room of their apartment building, and Gregor follows her down that grate to save her. During the first book, you find out about the Underland, about all the creatures and the people that live down there. The people that live in the Underland have very translucent skin. There are giant bats, giant cockroaches, giant spiders, rats, you name it. There's a lot of different pockets of critters in this world, and I was really enjoying seeing them. At the end of the first book, there are hintings that Gregor and his sister are going to have to go back to the Underland at some point, and in this book, we follow them when they go back to the Underland and have to tackle a different prophecy, this one, the Prophecy of Bane. So basically, they have to go down and figure out what this Bane is and try to kill it to prevent the Underland from I don't know, being destroyed. I thoroughly enjoyed this journey. I loved all the topics that it explores. I'm gonna do an individual book review where I'll go through all of these things that I loved, so I'm not talking your ear off about it right now. I loved it, and I gave it 5 stars. So far, I would definitely recommend this series. There are 3 more books in the series that I need to read, but I'm so much looking forward to those. Did that make sense? I'm really looking forward to reading those. The second to last book that I read in 2020 is Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. I was hoping to really love this one, and I just didn't. I really love Terry Pratchett's writing in the Discworld novels. I've read like 4 or 5 of them and have really enjoyed them. I also really like Neil Gaiman's books, but I guess I just don't like them together. In this one, you follow a bunch of different characters. In the background, the apocalypse is starting to unfold, and there is like conversations between this angel character and this demon character about what they should do about it, if they should do anything about it. It all comes down to this one specific child that's been born that's going to bring about the end of days, the like son of the devil or something like that. And you just follow all of these characters as all of these events are unfolding. I was not invested in this, so I like don't remember any of their names, but I just remember being really not invested in the like son of the devil character. I didn't really enjoy following him. The humor was hit or miss for me. Some things I thought were funny, but a lot of it I didn't think it was that funny. I think that if you have the specific type of humor that this book has, you're gonna really love it. But I think that if you don't, it's gonna be like a meh book for you, and that's what it was for me. I was really hoping to love it because I was looking forward to checking out the TV show. I tried watching the TV show, and it is very similar to the book, so I really wasn't enjoying it either, which is so upsetting because I wanted to love this book so much. But at the end of the day, not every book is going to be for every reader, so sad. But I ended up giving this one 3 stars because there were things that I liked about it, but there were just some things that I wasn't vibing with, so 3 stars. And the last book that I read in 2020 was Giovannis Room by James Baldwin. I've been really wanting to check this one out just because on any list of like must-read LGBTQIA plus books, Giovannis Room pops up on a lot of them. I didn't fully know what to expect going into this book. I just know that people say it's devastating, and so I needed to be in the right state of mind going in to handle the devastation or whatever. This one follows a character named David. He's living in France, I believe, in Paris. You learn about him, but also mainly about his relationship with another man named Giovanni. You find out very early on that Giovanni is in a lot of trouble and is about to be executed. Then you follow David as he's reflecting on his time spent in Paris thus far and everything that's occurred. You follow his relationship with Giovanni, you follow his relationship with other people, and you learn more about his, I don't know, like state of mind, his way of thinking when it comes to relationships with people, relationships with women, relationships with other men. And yeah, David and Giovanni are both kind of strange characters. So I was enjoying seeing everything unfold, and it is heavy and it is a bleak book, which I was prepared for. So I enjoyed it, even though it is like devastating or whatever. There isn't a whole lot to say about it just because it is so short, but I did really enjoy it, and I did really enjoy the writing, which I'm always kind of hesitant when it comes to classics because sometimes the writing can be really hard to get through. I didn't find that to be the case with Giovanni's Room. I read this extremely quickly. And I think I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I would definitely check out more by James Baldwin in the future. But this one I really enjoyed and definitely would recommend if you want to check it out. Just know that it is pretty bleak and the characters are not ones that you're going to love. Like, I don't love David. I found him interesting to read about, but he's like not a good guy. So be prepared for that. But I did enjoy this one. So those are the last 15 books that I read in 2020. Now that I'm caught up, we can put 2020 behind us, except for the couple of reviews that I need to film. Yeah, I'm glad I have that off my chest. I usually like to break up the number of books that I talk about to 5 or 10, just so I can have more time to talk about each one, talk about how I like the writing and stuff like that, but I ran out of time. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and comment down below if you've read any of these books. What was the last book that you read in 2020? Because I'm so far behind. If you have any recommendations based off of my thoughts and feelings on these books, let me know that as well. Anything else you want me to know, leave it down below and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye. Nookie's off camera, but he is like, but he's right here and he also says bye. Bye.